There goes Facebook. Okay. Everybody, welcome. This is going to be episode 8 of the Armed Society podcast. We are live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and I would like to encourage everybody, if you would, go ahead and share the feed so more people can see. And while we're on the air and live, go ahead and comment, and your comment may make it to the air. I'm going to go ahead and start by introducing everybody. Well, I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. I'm going to start to my right. We're going to have Amanda. Tell us who you are, where your stuff is, why you're here, and all that good stuff.
Well, yeah, why am I here? I don't know. No, my name is Amanda Suffecool. I am the host of Eye on the Target Radio. And you can find us at eyeonthetargetradio.com. That's probably the easiest place. We're nationally syndicated Pro 2A radio show, and I can say that until the guy that's in the Marsha spot right below me here, because will trump everything that I have to say about anything that I have to say about the radio. So, Tom?
I'm Tom Gresham, and I'd like to just hang around with all these guys. I'm the host of Gun Talk Radio. We've been doing that for 25 years, which is unbelievable. You pretty much can find everything we do at guntalk.com. We do TV and video and radio and anything else they'll let us get away with. Basically, I've been talking about guns since I was 2 and finally figured out a way to make a living doing it.
All right. And then that means, Tony, you're up.
Cool. I'm Tony Simon. I'm from an organization called The Second Is For Everyone out of New Jersey, where I introduce people of all backgrounds to firearms, Second Amendment advocacy. And I do that in New Jersey and Pennsylvania right now, and I have my eye on New York and Maryland in 2021. I also own a little network called Self-Defense Radio Network on a show called Self-Defense Gun Stories Podcast. And I'm also on Firearms Radio Network on a show called Gun and Gear Review Podcast. And, of course, I have the 2A, 4E podcast, where I talk about Second Amendment and try to introduce people to some of the words we use and things we do and ease them into the Second Amendment advocacy community.
All right. Very cool. We are having a little bit of a problem with the Facebook going live, but I think we're just going to trudge on here because I do know we are live on YouTube, and we're starting to get comments in. Iron Horseman's already there saying hello. I will get, as soon as I get Facebook fixed, I'll start getting those comments in. Amanda, I'm going to turn it over to you. You had a couple of topics you wanted to get into.
Yeah, I was. When you look at this lineup of people that are on tonight's show, I'm thrilled. And so I want to talk a little bit about. Let's talk about podcasting and radio and communication, and how do you reach an audience? And let's talk about jargon and those who use it and those who don't, and kind of where that fits in to podcasts and radio and stuff. So I have to say, when I listen now, once I started doing radio, and then, so now I can't listen to it the same way. There's gaps for a commercial, and I'm like, right? There's all of this stuff, and you're like, oh, you know what's going on in the background. But when I hear other radio hosts use jargon and then just kind of carry on, that one is the one that is almost unacceptable to me, because it's like they're trying to, I don't know, talk over, talk above, talk down to their audience. I mean, what do you guys take that and run with it? Tom, I'll start with you.
Well, it's an interesting idea, Amanda. Jargon is one of the ways we figure out that we're in the in club. And it doesn't matter if it's guns or whatever your hobby is, there's jargon everywhere with everything. But if you're a communicator, you don't want anything out there that gets in the way of people understanding what you're talking about. So you could use jargon a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a bad idea, kind of like back in my old writing days. I've done an awful lot of writing and editing. if you are going to end up using an acronym, you say what it is the first time, and then you say, here's the acronym, and then after that you could use the acronym. Same deal with jargon. If there's a term you might be using, you might want to talk about what it is at least once and throw it out there so people understand. I think one of the things, and maybe this gets back to kind of what you're talking about, Amanda, is we have to be open and welcome to newcomers. We have 5 million first-time gun buyers this year alone. They've never owned a gun. They've made this incredible change in their life to redefine who they are from a non-gun owner to a gun owner. And we don't want to be off-putting. We don't want to make it feel like, well, gee, I don't even understand what these people are talking about. We got to find a way to make them feel welcome. So I guess just maybe being a little bit careful with the N-words, the jargon, and being open to other people coming in. What do you think, Tony?
Pretty much that's where I started in 2015 with the diversity shoots. And then we decided to do the podcast just so we could reach more people that maybe do need that little boost in, like, okay, what does that word mean? What does that mean? And I didn't realize that we spoke so much in jargon until I had one of the ladies that comes to my events, and I ask for critiques all the time on a podcast and during events. And she was like, sometimes I don't know what you guys are talking about when you're talking about like different calibers, different this, different that. So yeah, you take your time out and you try to explain it, not talk down to people, but understand that you're using different lingo. You're in a totally different, maybe hobby that they've not been in. I mean, I could imagine walking in to a place with a bunch of people that love racing cars. I wouldn't know what they were talking about. And I think I know how to put gas in it and check the oil, but I won't be able to keep up with their conversation.
You know, a point I'm just thinking about, we got to be careful about being a bit condescending sometimes. You know, if somebody says clip when they mean magazine, I'm not going to jump all over them. Who cares? Do we really want to alienate somebody over that?
No, and correcting somebody, correcting somebody publicly, too, is another one of those. I'm sorry, Tony, I stumped on you.
No, it's okay, because I also teach classes, of course, NRA First Steps and things like that, and I introduce, I'm lucky to have a lot of female students come to the event, and I try to tell them the words do make a difference. They don't make all the difference at all, but especially being a woman or sometimes being a woman of color and you're in the gun store and you ask for certain things, that's when the vocabulary matters. You don't have to be 100% like, know the difference between 9x18, Makarov and 9mm Parabellum, but you have to use certain words. And I was like, and truly the most important thing is the safe handling of a firearm when they hand it to you. I was like, that says more than the words you use. I mean, those are the important things because people are going to realize you know what you're doing and maybe not try to take advantage of you or give you that pink pistol that's in the corner covered in dust that the little lady should have.
Shrink it and pink it. I recently I tried to join a Facebook page and they had secret questions and you had to answer the secret questions before you could be part of the in crowd. And they said, tell me what a BCG is. I was like, I don't know what it is. So I'm going to out and out say I have no clue, right? And so then I went on Facebook and another thing and said, I don't know what that is. Chris Sereno was like, you're kidding me, right? I said, no. So then he messaged me offline and told me, and I'm like, I'm a pistol girl. So if you would have asked me what a bolt carrier group was, I could then tell you, oh, okay. But a BCG in what context? It's just in the gun world, but out there, I have no idea, and it's that kind of stuff. And there's some. Go ahead, Tom.
So, no. And then to your point, what's the point? The point is to keep people out. It's like we have our treehouse up here. We're not going to let you people in if you don't know the secret code word. Okay, great, but you're missing an opportunity to welcome somebody in who might be a really good ambassador for you if you just open up a little bit and drop some of the pretension.
Right. Educate me.
Get a lot of that.
That would be, that would be it. Exactly.
And stop attacking people. Sorry, we didn't even go into that. Like for their firearms choice, especially their first gun. oh my God, you have a fill in the blank to whichever product the internet wants to poop on that week. And it's like, hey, this person, again, living in New Jersey, this person may have had to go against an entire lifetime of negativity attached to firearms ownership. They had to, especially holidays just now, they had to go against every relative they had. They had to go against the stereotype in their head. Then they had to go down to the police station and wait. Depends on what town you are. If they abide by the law, 30 days. If they don't, like Jersey City, a year to get your permit to purchase your pistol. Then you had to go purchase it, going into the gun store where who knows what lies you've been told about who's in the gun store. And then you finally get this thing that you've worked, let's go with a year, and you go online and go, hey, I just got my brand new, and somebody goes, wow, you got a piece of crap. Why did you do that? You should have gotten this. Right. And it's like, do you understand what you just did to this person? This is the initial foray into this community, and you had to one-up them because you have a, and it's always funny because it's nothing, no one ever who dogs anyone out for their first purchase has like a $5,000 gun. It's like, no one has like a top-of-the-line custom anything, and they say you should have gotten this. It's always something pedestrian. But I'm like, dude, calm down. We're welcoming people into the industry. If you want to be that guy, maybe you should go to a forum that asks, what's a BCG? So you and all your buddies can just sit in your little tree house and talk to each other about the coolest BCG.
Right. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Mark Hookham just commented, it's like SIG with their fire control group.
I just saw that, and it was like, okay, so what's a fire control group? And so we started looking. We did a show on it a couple weeks ago. You know, it's the trigger assembly. Well, we've got to give it a new cool engineering name.
Well, now to be fair, that's been called a fire control group for an awful lot of years, not just by SIG, but a lot of other people. But in their case, that actually is the firearm, which is the weird part.
Right. That
little part in the middle, it looks like a trigger, that has the serial number on it, and that is actually the firearm, and you just get different outsides and stick it on there, but that's actually your gun. So it's a kind of a weird deal. You know, and I agree that it's kind of a weird term, but people have been calling the trigger mechanism the fire control group for an awful long time. So I think it may have come out of the military.
So have you shot that gun where you just replaced the outside? Have you shot that one in a couple different assemblies? So have you disassembled and reassembled, and how is it from one to the next to the next?
It works fine. I mean, look. You're always safe saying SIG doesn't make anything bad. I mean, they make good stuff. And this is a pretty cool concept. Everything around the P320 and the whole family from that is quite amazing what they do. Now, I'm pretty ecumenical about guns. I was this morning, let's say we were messing around with a Colt Python 1911, let's see, a Springfield Hellcat, and let's see, I think I'm wearing a Glock today. You know, it's like I always tell people, don't do what I do. Do what I say, because I do all the wrong things. I switch guns all the time, which is not a great plan, but it's just the nature of having to, poor me, getting to test all these different guns. But, you know, when you look at the general quality of guns today, they're so good, and the companies are so good about standing behind them. If they have a problem, it's like, we just had 2 recalls this week, SIG with its cross rifle and Smith with the M&P EZ, which I just got one of those for my wife. She loves the M&P EZ. Now we got to go check and see if it's in the recall. But, you know, they stand behind them. They take care of them.
Well, and the recall for that EZ is not their fault, because when you looked at what they were talking about and how they were talking about it, SIG does not manufacture that hammer. They buy it from somebody. They had already had a process. It was a frozen process. It was a manufactured process stream, and sometime they know exactly when the manufacture date in March to the manufacture date in October that they had changed the process and had to change it back. So somebody in the manufacturing plant is at fault in that whole SIG. It's got egg on their face. It has nothing to do with SIG and their design.
Oh, that's actually Smith & Wesson on that one.
Smith & Wesson, yeah.
I'm sorry. The Smith & Wesson. I'm sorry, the EZ. Sorry, yeah.
Right.
Smith & Wesson actually came out to our last diversity shoot that was held in Pennsylvania. And I was there at Great American Outdoor Show when they released the EZ. So I got to touch it the very first day it was out. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait to shoot it. And fast forward a year, I was at a training in St. Louis. Someone had it, but they had no ammo, so they had the 380, and I got to dry fire it again. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait to shoot it. Well, it just happened on the 19th of last month. I was giggling like a kid at Disney. That 380 is just such a pleasure to shoot, and I introduce new people to guns all the time, and that's one of the things, because the EZ is so easy to manipulate, so easy to load, all of that. I had a new lady that was totally intimidated. Again, Smith was there, and they had a lot of their firearms. They had 22s. She didn't want to shoot anything over a 22 long rifle because she was afraid of the recoil. So I begged her. I was like, look, I won't do anything to allow you to be hurt, but I have a Smith & Wesson 380 EZ. I'll load one round. Could you shoot it? I had her load it. She saw how easy it was. She saw how easy it was to rack. She loved the gun. And we put more rounds through it, and I was like, all right, I got another favor to ask. In the next port, I have an EZ 9mm. Could you go try that? And I just worked her up, and she was shooting ARs by the end of the day.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Nice story. Nice story.
I want to bring up one more social media comment we got. Mark Hookham again said, I have the 365 XL and an extra XL slide with a red dot on it. It's faster than AR Legos.
Okay.
And,
I think that SIG thing is a great idea with the fire control group. I don't know how much people are going to use it like that, but I think it's great options, especially living here in Jersey, that I can build the gun while I'm waiting on my permit from the government to come through to buy the fire control group. I can buy everything else. And then when I get it at my FFL, put it together. Good to go.
Well, see, in Jersey, that's like the perfect thing, because then you can change what you've got. You can change what you're shooting, and in Jersey, that's still you've just got one gun.
Yep, especially for some of the officers, because they have to have a off-duty gun, and that has to be serialized, and that can be the only gun they have for off-duty. Well, okay, you got your carry gun that you carry to work, which is a full size, like 320. You get home and you want to go out with your wife or family, you can put it in the compact, and it's the same firearm, same serial number. You don't have to run anything past the department, and you have multiple firearms, because like most people don't know, most cops aren't into guns like that, and they don't want a bunch of handguns at the house. One will be fine.
That's a shame, because, one gun is never enough. In fact, all I want is one more. Whatever the number is, just one more is all I'm looking for.
One more.
That's right.
I just, in a lot of cases, I mean, it was SIG a couple years ago, maybe 10, maybe a little more, where they offered the fire control group and two frames, and you could switch it back and forth in a neat little package. And pretty much where we were, people bought it, played with it for the novelty for a little while, and then one of them stayed getting dust on the shelf, and they carried the other one. So Ohio, I think it's, we can have 10 serial numbers stacked up on the shelf and it's not a big deal. In Jersey, I can see where that has a different requirement, a different set of needs for you guys that don't live in free America.
Yeah, it's a pain with handguns. Right now, I have two that are sitting as orphans in my FFL right now, waiting to be picked up, a Glock 34 and a CZ P07. And it's like, okay, as soon as the paperwork gets done, I can go visit. I mean, I could drop by. He's a nice guy. He lets me come by and visit and look at him and drive by him. He's done a trigger job on one of them while they were being. Yeah, he did a trigger job for me on one of them that was being held. He was like, "Hey." I had a 686 Smith & Wesson revolver that I want to introduce people to guns with. It's a 357 4-inch barrel, and I load 38s in it. And I told him I had a class with a woman who was 69 years old, and she could not rack the slide on something, and it wasn't about technique. It was about grip strength and just grasping the slide itself. And he was like, "Hey, I have a 686 in a shop I ran into. You want to buy it? You buy it, I'll take it back," because he was in Pennsylvania where he was teaching a retired officers class. "I'll bring it back with me across the border, transfer it, whatever, 2 miles into Jersey, and I'll do a trigger job on it." He gave me a trigger job that was so smooth that now when the lady came back to the class, she can shoot 38s out of this because her husband is older than her, and she's the one that defends the home. And she had to have a firearm to do that because they're older. They know they have medicine. They know people have broken into senior citizens' homes to get drugs out of their medicine cabinet. And she had to have a way to defend herself. And that's what I came up with. And it's worked out really well for me because I got an awesome 686 with an awesome trigger job that he didn't even, I think he charged me like less than you'd pay for a magazine. He charged me to do a trigger job. And he's one of those old cop, what do you call that police target shooting back in the day? PCP or PPC? Yeah, he was one of those guys, so he knows a good trigger, and he gave me a trigger so well that I did a 100-yard hostage shot with that gun one day.
Wow!
And tagged the hostage taker in the head. Yeah, I went home immediately afterwards. I went immediately home afterwards. That was my first shot. I nailed it in the head. I stood up. Put it away, and the guy who was spotting said, you hit it in the head. You're not going to shoot anymore?" I'm like, "I can't get better than that. I'm going home." and that's what I've been taking to classes and introducing people to firearms. One way to do it.
Nice.
I bring up real quick, Smith & Wesson owes me a check, Mark Hookham says. "I've handed my 380 EZ to dozens of people, and many have come back in the next week with their own EZ a week or two later."
That one's an easy sell. It's a real easy sell.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, I don't know if you were going to go there. Can I bring something up?
Go for it.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about we're basically fighting for all the marbles right now in the Georgia Senate runoff elections, and every gun owner, I don't care where you live, needs to be involved in this by donating money or doing whatever you can and calling your friends and neighbors in Georgia. But if you're not in Georgia, don't think this doesn't affect you, because what happens, this is basically going to be a very thin firewall that we're still going to hold on to in the Senate. And if we don't, then basically the whole Biden gun ban agenda and their whole wish list, there's nothing to stop it at that point.
Right.
Not only is there nothing to stop it, there's also, if they get both of the Georgia seats, then there's a possibility they can pack the court. And for somebody who may not be politically savvy, what that is, back in the 1930s, they did it. They expanded the court to approve enough justices to get through what the administration and the Congress wanted. That could happen if the Republicans lose both seats in Georgia. And so it's critical.
Court packing is a way that the executive branch, the president, can take control of the Supreme Court, so the Supreme Court simply becomes an arm of the executive branch and does what he or she, which is what we're going to be looking at, wants to have done. So court packing is a real threat. But and people say, well, if that happens, then I'm going to do this. Or I lost all my guns in a boating accident. Well, that's, you know what, that was clever 10 years ago. It's not clever anymore. It's just dumb. Because when we get to that point, friends and neighbors, we've lost.
Yes,
and
we
can win right now. And it's like, oh, well, I would never do that. And I say, okay, let me ask you a question. Would you put $100 in right now to be able to keep all your guns? Because that's really what we're looking at. Would you put $100 in?
Right.
I did have a guy that he wrote that because I kept saying, well, just put in however much you'd spend on a box of ammo. And clever guy said, well, I couldn't afford the cost of a box of ammo, so I put $100 in.
There you go. That's cute. There's some other things that people can do too, because they need the money, because they're going to be running ads. They're running ad campaigns. The political campaigns run on money. It is a money machine. But additionally, it runs on volunteers and effort. So there are a lot of groups that, I don't know if you're hearing about the texting campaigns. Most of the texting campaigns actually require a person to push send for every text that gets sent out. So people can connect with the Georgia GOP or connect with the campaigns for these two senators. And when you do, they will hook you up with a number, and you can just sit from your home with and they put a shield over your cell phone so they don't know that the text is coming from you, but it allows you to be that machine and send them. So the texting is that way. The same way with the phone calls. They say that you can sway somebody. If you can reach them, you can sway them. And so you're way better to actually speak to someone, text somebody, reach out, email somebody, reach out to them, than you are to just mail them something.
Amanda, how do you get involved in that? Do you contact one of the campaigns? Will they get
you can go to either you can go to either one of the campaigns. There's a couple different things. The NRA has been very active in prior campaigns. I'm sure they're active now. So if you're familiar with your NRA ILA person, reach out to them. They will help you. Reach out to the campaign for each of the two senators that you're looking to support, and or reach out to the Georgia GOP, because those are the underlying places. And there's other groups that are going to be doing similar, but that's it. And if you're sending money, make sure that you're sending money directly to the candidates. And right now there's so many groups of people that are saying, oh, well, send us the money and send us the money. Where's it going, and what are they doing with it? We really need to make sure that the money actually gets to the right people to do something with, and not to somebody who's just scooped off 50% of it because they look at it as an opportunity to make some money.
Right.
Or they use that money in another state, not towards the campaign you want. And
right.
I find this a lot when I do things and you say the word or the letters NRA and people want to run for the hills. NRA ILA is another organization totally. NRA ILA puts in work. They've put in work here in New Jersey. They've helped me with the diversity shoot. Big NRA, not so much. NRA ILA is in the fight. So yeah, they don't get a lot of recognition, but they are doing the work. So if you want to donate to somebody or be part of something, donate to them. NRA ILA, because of COVID, is not doing some of their workshops, but go online and check it out, because they used to do workshops to tell you how to become an advocate and advocate, and they would do them in Cabela's. They would host them in Cabela's around the country. I used to actually announce that on my show every time there was one, just to let people know. Advocacy is very important. Reaching out to your elected representatives on the local, state, and federal level are important. Even if you live in a free state, let them know you're watching.
Well, and we're a small country now. We really are. Or we're so connected. Think about it. How many people do you know that live in Georgia? Pick up the phone, call them.
At least 4 or 5 of them, yeah.
Right. Pick up the phone, call them. Because people, why do you put political signs in your front yard? Not because the politician sees it. It's because your neighbors, the people who know you and respect you, say, oh, you like that candidate? Well, if you like that candidate and you've done the work for that candidate and you understand what they stand for, and I like you, I'm going to vote for the candidate that you recommend and you suggest. So having that conversation, yeah, it really is that. But that's the beauty of the grassroots is that conversation. So call your Georgia friends and say, look, this is critical. And what are you doing, and who do you know?
There are a lot of gun people are actually going to Georgia from across the country to work, to campaign, to volunteer, get involved. It's just a few weeks. The election takes place on January the 5th. I mean, and this one, as we say, really is for all the marbles. This is going to be the stopgap. As I say, a very thin but a very effective wall there, because Mitch McConnell is a tiger. He really knows. I want to keep him in charge of the Senate. I do not want Chuck Schumer to be in charge of the Senate. It really is that simple.
Right.
I would want Chuck Schumer in charge of a Jack in the Box. I look at this as activism. This is a civil right. The Second Amendment is a civil right. The civil rights movement, the civil rights battle, is not over. This is what we're fighting still. All right. I mean, It's that simple, and you don't have to know a lot about American history to know unarmed Americans of many races, ethnicities, and religions have been victimized by the government. And when a lot of firearms advocates like ourselves say something and people go, well, that could never happen here, I'm like, you're totally dismissing the fact that it has happened here. Continually has happened here. And I'm like, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme, to take that Mark Twain saying. And it really does. It might not be the same people, but it's the same types of incidents. Nothing says that won't happen again. And I can go to whatever happened this summer and point it out. It doesn't have to be ancient history anymore. Pay attention. Have conversations with your friends. Be calm. Understand that when you're talking to someone about the Second Amendment, most people have not, their opinion on the Second Amendment is not chiseled in stone. So if you don't come off as a psycho, they know you already. They know you from work. They know you from the kids' games. As long as you're not screaming cold dead hands and doing the Wolverine pose, you can probably get through the most people through conversation. And now all of a sudden they're understanding the change because they don't know the guy from mainstream media. They just like looking at him because he's cute or she's cute. They know you.
And let me throw this in. From having a lifetime of debating on this, pro tip for you: the first person to mention Hitler loses, because you will be discounted at that point. You may be right, but it's not a good debating technique. It just isn't. You're going to lose at that point. But if you use techniques like, well, did you ever consider, or you may not be aware of, instead of starting out with, or you dumb blankety blank something, that's just not persuasive.
Yes.
To learn along. And I'm going to take this opportunity, as long as we're doing this deal. Two things. Amanda, you mentioned the NRA. I can't tell you how many people over the years have said, well, where was the NRA? Why didn't the NRA? Blah, blah, blah. I said, well, where were you? Why didn't you? Because the NRA is just us. You get sit there and expect someone else to do your job for you. It is your job, it is your duty as an American to get off your rear end and get involved and write a check or show up or make a call or send a text. But if you sit there and do nothing and expect someone else to do it for you, I'm sorry, you're part of the problem. We're pulling this wagon, and you're getting really heavy sitting in that wagon.
Go ahead, Tony.
I was actually called. We came up with a term for them. We call the people that pull that wagon 2A heavy lifters. Why? Because we're moving the whole movement, while other people, when we host events in Jersey and stuff like that, and the same 200 to 300 hardcore Second Amendment people come out, and then everyone else is in the comments. Oh, I wish I could have been there. Oh, I wish. Maybe you should have it on a Sunday, a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday at 3 during lunch. I'm like, how about this? Don't comment. Just show up, or just don't comment. It's that simple. Being involved, there's a lot of different ways you can get involved. Making phone calls, a text, a volunteering. How's this? For $0, you can share the Second Amendment advocacy work of other people on your social media for free. Gun owners should have something from what Giving Tuesday was yesterday. What Second Amendment advocacy groups did you promote in your stories on your social media, or did you tweet? Because if you did none, think about how many people are in your circle that was an opportunity to make them aware of a Second Amendment advocacy group. Cost you nothing. You didn't have to leave the house. That's what I'm saying.
I want to bring up
an amazing opportunity. Go ahead, Paul.
I do, besides this, I also do the weekly bullet, the daily bullet for the Second Amendment Foundation. And on the daily bullet that was just released today, I got to have a chat with a good friend of mine I've known for a number of years, Rachel Malone, out of Texas. And Rachel started off anti-gun, and when her brother got a gun, she wanted to research and prove that he was doing something incredibly dangerous. She then found out it was more safe to have a gun than not, so she became a gun owner. Then, she was really hoping an open carry bill would get passed in Texas, and it didn't. So she started lobbying herself while she was full-time employed, while she was doing other things, and she went out and she started lobbying herself. And she got so good at it, and she did it so well, that the gun owners of America decided, we want this person in Texas doing full-time lobbying. And now that's her full-time job. How did she get that full-time job? She wasn't lucky. She worked her butt off for it.
And toward that end, we have an amazing opportunity right now. I'm looking at this thing that the Second Amendment Foundation just put out. With Amy Coney Barrett on the court, the Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, and others are filing really, really important and strategic lawsuits, flooding the courts with these lawsuits with the aim of getting them to the Supreme Court. And frankly, honestly, what they don't talk about, but we can, is trying to get a lot of these cases in before numbskulls file their own lawsuits, because there are some Second Amendment folks who think, well, I'll file a lawsuit, not understanding that this is strategic and it's critical, it's important, but it's delicate, and you got to know what you're doing in this world. And if you screw it up by having a bad case, you screw it up for everybody. But anybody that says, well, I just don't know what to do, I don't know what I should be doing. Well, you know what? And truth in advertising here, okay, I'm on the board of the Second Amendment Foundation. But I got to tell you, if you want to write a check somewhere, that's a pretty good place to write a check, because these lawsuits are expensive. We have really good attorneys, and they cut us a good break, but it's still expensive. And this is where we actually are building the huge firewall right now. Because when we get the right decisions out of this Supreme Court, that's going to protect and maintain the Second Amendment, no matter what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do.
I'm with you. I am a life member of the Second Amendment Foundation. And I think that that's when people ask me that's what I tell them.
Well, and
advocacy is not.
Go ahead, Tony.
Go ahead, guys. Advocacy is not cheap. It's not free. That work that people do, those court cases, going down and taking trips and packing people into buses and whatnot, and to go to protest, they're not free, man. They cost money. I mean, even what I started doing, because Paul is a bad influence, but what I started doing was Second Amendment diversity shoot, is I did that out of pocket. I mean, that was all me until 2 years ago. That was my overtime. Going to NRA shows, that was my tax return money. Like that's all me, dude. So yeah, help out people if you live in a free state, because I really love those people that say that kind of thing, like, I'm good, I live in a free state. Hey, stop.
You're not.
There are none. There are none. You're going to have to join this fight. And if you think your state is so free, hey, cut checks to Jersey. We have 3 different groups in Jersey that's fighting for our rights all the time. And we get some W's, but we catch a lot of L's too. And we need all the help we can get. I mean, we have lawsuits right now. I mean, some of the cases that got blown off by the Supreme Court, 2 of them were from Jersey earlier this year. So yes, we're putting in work. Some people somehow think, because we're behind what Anthony Colandro calls the Iron Curtain, that we're not putting up a fight. No, we're some of the most vehement Second Amendment advocates out there, because we do live here, and we can see where the rest of the country is going if you don't put in work. Welcome to Jersey. Welcome to arbitrary numbers in your magazines. Welcome to arbitrary numbers in the wait. Oh, it's 30 days to get this. Where did the 30 days come from? All of that.
I'll share with you guys a cool technique that we developed down here in Louisiana. We got a guy named Mike. I'm not going to tell you his last name because he wouldn't appreciate it, but we call him the Trunk Monkey. You guys know the Trunk Monkey commercials? You push the button, you only release him now and then. Sometimes we turn Mike loose on the state legislature. And Mike is really good at what he does. And when you need a bunch of people to show up at a hearing, Mike has an organization. He tells these people we're going to be there. He hands out all the T-shirts who are all wearing the same. But here's the trick here. He gets guns donated. And they may be used guns and cheap guns or whatever. But he says, all right, everybody that shows up, we have 5 guns or we have 10 guns that we're going to raffle off. We're going to basically names out of a hat. So if there's 80 of you, we're giving away 10 guns, you know the odds. But we're just going to give these away to whoever shows up, and everybody gets their name in a hat. And then he busses them in, but giving away guns will help get people to show up. It's just what it is.
That's amazing.
I want to go back, Tom, if I could, to something you mentioned just a few minutes ago. And I got to admit, I'm stealing this directly from this radio show that I really like listening to called The Gun Talk. And this guy, Tom Gresham, had this other guy, Alan Gottlieb, on. This has been a few years ago. But the topic of lawsuits, obviously with the Second Amendment Foundation, came up. And I do not remember who said what, but I'm just going to paraphrase this. It turns out that you don't want to just file any lawsuit. You don't want to. Losses hurt. And if somebody files a lawsuit on Second Amendment grounds with somebody who's got a very weak case, it gets up to the appeals process. If it gets kicked down on appeal, it makes the next good lawsuit that much harder to file.
Harder.
Absolutely true. And you get somebody says, my brother-in-law is a lawyer, and we think this thing's unconstitutional. He usually handles car wrecks, but I think he could probably do this one too. Second Amendment cases are civil rights cases. Mm-hmm. And you have to know that's a specialty in the law. And you have to know it. You have to have the Adam Krauts of the world. You know, you have to have the guys who specialize in this stuff. And they know how to have this suit that builds on this suit that builds on this suit. And they're planning on going, it's like 3D chess or something. They're planning on going way up here somewhere, but they have to start here and build them up. There's a plan there, and it may be a 10-year plan. And you're right, exactly, Paul. Some of these lawsuits that get filed by somebody or even some group, and there are a few 2A groups that are fairly clueless, but they really are all about making money for themselves. I'm sorry, but there just is. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Fill in the blanks. And they muddy the waters and make it much more difficult. If you get a bad decision, it's really hard to overcome that sometimes. So that's why you got to support the groups that really do good work. And I always tell people, they say, well, I support XYZ. I say, good. Tell me where they've won. They say, well, what? Well, you know, I get a lot of emails from it. Yes, I know. Show me the cases that they actually filed, not the ones they filed an amicus brief on and joined in on, but the cases they actually filed, the cases they actually funded that they've won. Show me that and I'll be impressed. Things like the Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, and yes, the NRA does a lot of good work on the legal side of things. Right now they're a holy mess on the general operations side. We don't need to get into that. But find somebody that actually has a track record of winning cases that they bring, and that's where you need to be putting your support.
Right, because if you are spending your money on one of the Second Amendment organizations that sounds like they're trying to sell you a sham wow or
shake weight.
Right. I mean, those are the ones, stay away from that, because if they have to have all of the flash and bluster, they don't have a lot of content. So,
or if they proclaim, we are the only true believers, we are the only no compromise group, excuse me, what that tells me is that you don't know how to win. You don't know how to win a little bit today, and a little bit tomorrow, and a little bit the next day, and that's how you end up getting to your goal. Or you could go for everything today and lose it all, and now what do you got? But you can raise money by claiming you're the only non-compromise group. Sorry, that's the way it goes. Yeah.
Look at the leaders of the organizations is my other thing. There is a Dudley Brown. Was that allowed? I'm sorry. There's a gentleman.
I'm starting to put something together here from the hints you guys dropping.
Just saying.
But
not subtle anymore, right?
Yeah.
We just went to less subtle.
You really need to look at how they're living and compared to the size of the organization they lead. Great deal of these organizations, especially on the state level, the leaders of these organizations, if they're lucky, they work for the organization. But a good number of them, these people are still working full-time jobs. And they fill in on the state level.
They're doing a great job.
Yeah. And so when you give your money to New Jersey Second Amendment Society, New York Rifle Pistol Association, some of these places in the bad states, the money actually does a whole lot of good because it's not spent on a private jet. It's spent getting that doing the fight in that state.
Think of all the money you're not spending eating out these days.
Yeah.
Use it.
There you go. Spend that money.
Actually, I was out with the president of New Jersey Second Amendment Foundation. He took me out for my birthday. So Alexander and I actually were talking about Second Amendment advocacy and what happens in New Jersey and what's going on. I mean, we're friends. We have been for a long time. But, I mean, it was just really cool hanging out with somebody else because you also need that recharge. Right now, I want to talk to some of those people that are in the fight. Sometimes it gets rough, and you do need to recharge, and you do need to talk to somebody to refresh your batteries. It's not just you, man. Especially, again, I live in Jersey, so we have some losses. And yes, sometimes it gets disheartening. Luckily, I'm friends with Tim Knight. And I text him and I was like, dude, we just did the 10-round magazine ban in 2019. I was like, I fought really hard. You know, I testified. I took days off. Of course, I mentioned it on multiple podcasts, in our podcast. And all that work, and they still pass, you know, this ridiculous law with an arbitrary magazine limitation. I had to recharge. I'm friends with a lot of other Second Amendment advocates. And sometimes you just need to talk about it and get stuff off your chest, but never think about surrendering. Maybe take a step back. Maybe take a little rest. You know what I mean? Rotate yourself out of take yourself out of the rotation, but come back in because this is a fight worth fighting.
Amen. And I want to go off on that recharge thing. It's been almost a year since I've been able to recharge. How do I recharge? I go to, well, like what's coming up in March, the open carry event
Florida
down
Carry?
in Florida. Yeah, with Florida Carry. I go to the NRA show. I go to the Second Amendment Foundation. Well, I don't get a lot of recharging done at Gun Rights Policy Conference, but I go there. I still get a bit of a charge out of it, even though I work my butt off. But I'm wondering, guys, when we've got vaccines that are coming, when are we going to be able to go back to meeting? And the SHOT Show isn't going to happen. When do we get to be able to meet up face to face again?
Well, NRA is the next one, and that's in May?
May.
And
that's
so
in May in Houston, and I'm reservations in, and I'm hoping. I got my fingers crossed on that one. But it's not all going to be back to normal by then. But there'll be something to do. But think about this, and Tony, I like what you were saying. You can go out with a few of your buddies. You can say, okay, we got kicked in the teeth on this one, but you know what? The Steelers get kicked in the teeth too, and they come back next Sunday and they got to play again. So here we are. It's like, if those guys can get beat and then come back and still win the Super Bowl, the thing is, this is not a fight for this week or this month or this year. This is a fight for the rest of our lives because these guys will always be trying to take away our guns and our gun rights. They always have. I was debating this in 1968 when the 1968 Gun Control Act was called the Dodd Bill, and I was in high school, and the very same things that were being said then are being said now. It's the same arguments, so it's never going to go away, and just understand that we're actually in a really good position right now to win a lot of this stuff because what we win in the Supreme Court, we actually have the potential. Imagine this. If the Supreme Court says it is unconstitutional to ban semi-automatic firearms, if the Supreme Court says it is unconstitutional to ban 30-round magazines, then all of those laws go away. So we can win huge here. We're in a golden position right now.
I am, as part of my job, I am the guy that is now in charge of the Second Amendment Foundation's Facebook page. And we had a comment today, and it was not even closely related to what was posted, and I don't remember what post it was on, but I do remember it was not even related to what we had put up there. The guy said, 34 lawsuits by the Second Amendment Foundation, but hundreds of bad laws get passed each year. And it seems like we're going backwards. And I commented underneath that as Second Amendment Foundation. I said, one lawsuit takes out a whole lot of bad laws.
Exactly.
Right.
There it is.
Right.
There it is.
Right. So let's circle around, because we want to talk about that and the information sharing of it. And what about social media, big tech, throttling information? So we're sitting here saying we're doing podcasts and we're talking to people and we're trying to communicate and we're blogging and we're writing and we're trying to share the message so that people stay supported and they stay positive and they stay in the fight. And then something happens and your videos don't play, or I had a tweet that went out to 27 whole people.
That's some reach.
Yeah.
I got, you know what, Amanda? On my personal account on Twitter, I think I have 27 followers. So you would have been a home run on my feed.
There you go. No, I mean, the one before it was like 12,000, and then that one was 27 or 29. I don't know. It wasn't 30. It's sick.
There are issues that we can't solve. Okay, we're not going to fix Twitter or Facebook. We just use them to whatever extent we can, and it's foolish to not use them because that's where the people are. That's where the reach is. I mean, I do the radio show. I'm on, I don't know, 250 plus radio stations, and that kind of gets around some of that. That helps. But, it's that old deal of people. I used to publish books, and people would say, well, how do you sell books? And I say, every way you can.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with what we're doing. Well, how do you get your message out? Every way you can. Use every platform you can. Use everything you can. And I don't care if you turn around and talk to the lady who's standing behind you in the checkout line. That's outreach. Bring up the subject. If somebody's sitting next to you on an airliner, you got a captive audience. They can't get away. Just be gentle, but you got 2 hours or an hour or 3 hours. You know what? If you can't win in that amount of time, you're just not trying. So, I mean, basically, I figure every single day is a day of outreach, and I'm going to use everything I can. And, yeah, I know what Facebook's doing and what Twitter's doing and all that, and that's a problem I can't solve. All I can do is just keep pushing it, trying to get it through the pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, take it to a guy that got kicked off of LinkedIn. How many people can say that? I got kicked off of LinkedIn.
Tony, you win.
Just keep fighting the fight. You're not going to stop me. I mean, heck, my state shut down and won't allow us to have over 25% capacity in an indoor range. What happened? I went across the border in the PA, found a range that allow us to host events, and I did it there. I'm going to keep it up. Right now, Parler is the new thing. Before that, it was MeWe. I'm going to just start opening up crazy wherever. The word has to get out. They can't stop the signal, as it said. And we're in the golden age of communication, really, when it comes to it as individuals. And you can't shut us all down.
Right. I want to bring up a social media comment that just came through. George Geller said, funny how most 2A defenders are volunteers, but most gun grabbers are paid. And there's some truth there.
There's some truth there, but I will tell you, and anybody that's not, I would encourage you, join the Everytown group, join the Moms Demand group. That way you get on their email list, you find out what they're doing, you find out where they're going to be meeting. If you really want to have fun, go to one of the meetings and say, hey, let's talk about gun safety, and then see where it goes. That's just the anarchist in me. So, but seriously, they actually do have a lot of volunteers now. They do have a lot of paid. I mean, for those who don't know, Everytown, for instance, will have 3 or 4 full-time paid people in every state working the legislature, where the NRA will have one field rep who's trying to cover 3, 4, or 6 states, that one person running around. And the Everytown Bloomberg people are in there all year long, pushing, meeting with legislators, handing them these bills for them to introduce. And so they have dollars. But what we have is numbers. And let me tell you, when we give away a half a dozen junky guns, we get a whole lot of people that show up at the legislature, and we win. And we had 80 of our volunteers at a committee meeting this year, and they had one person from every town there. And the legislatures, you may say anything you want to say about politicians, but all of them know how to count, because that's how they got there.
Amen.
Yeah, I think one of the funniest things I ever saw was during the Atlanta NRA. I'm sitting down in the green room, and Gail Pepin comes in. If you don't know Gail Pepin is with Masad Ayub. She is the predator of his organization. She's an awesome lady, all Second Amendment, all guns, all the time. But she does not look like what you think a gun lady would look like, whatever that is you're paying. That's not Sarah Connor, all right? That's not what Gail looks like. And we're all sitting around, and Beth Alcazar comes in, and she was like, "Whoo, I just walked in through the park, and they have Mom's Demand protest out there. They're giving out T-shirts to everyone, and they're all on camera." Gail was like, "Let's go." What? Let's go. Let's go get one. So there's pictures of Gail Pepin and a lot of the other people all dressed up in Mom's Demand T-shirts posing around Shannon Watts. It's the greatest thing ever. And they were just there, dude, talking about counting coup. They just went there and got shirts. So when people tell me about how many people at a Mom's Demand event, I'm like, yeah, they'll give a shirt to anyone. Doesn't mean they're really protesting. That's where we actually came up with ideas of giving out blue shirts with our Second Amendment, CNJFO, when we said we're going to host events or have protests, try to get everyone in the same color. Because now all of a sudden there's numbers, and get them out there. So I came up with one of our shirts that we do for $10, Gun Control Equals Racism. I get nothing from this. This is all between the T-shirt guy and mailing it to your house for $10. And we were like, we got a T-shirt that says Gun Control Equals Racism. Why? Because wherever a camera is, it's going to catch one of them. And that'll start a conversation somehow. And it does, and it did then. And I'm like, we can't let them have all the messages when it's easy as just wearing the same color shirt. Come on.
Here's an interesting thing. They were doing, was it in Everytown? It was one of the bus tours that they were doing across the country, and they had, I'm near Chardon, Ohio, so they had stopped and they had picked up one of the students that was hurt in the Chardon school shooting, and they were doing their bus tour. And I'm at work, and I hear that the bus tour is stopping at a park about 15 minutes from my shop. I told my boss, I'm like, I'm taking a long lunch, and I'm taking an early lunch. And I go out to shipping, and I get a cardboard box, and I write with a Sharpie marker, I write a sign, and then I go down and I stand on the street corner across from where their protest is. So there's me, right? And I come to find out that if you're counter to whatever the protest is, the media will give you equal time. There could just be one of you. So if there's an Everytown thing going on, and you can have a sign that shows that you're the counter to that, they will talk to you. You will get an opportunity to be on the news talking about it. I go back to work. My boss was like, we just saw you on the news. I'm like,
well, you just touched on one of my favorite things, which is the world belongs to those who show up.
Yes.
And it really is true.
Nice. I like that because it's true. It's very, very true.
We are coming up. We got about 1 minute before the top of the hour, and I do like to keep these at about an hour long. So even though we're not on network radio like two of the people here, I do want to go ahead and keep this kind of close to on time. Because we started the Facebook feed late, I'm going to have everybody introduce her. As we leave, I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves again. Let everybody know who they've been talking to. I think I'm going to go in the reverse order. Tony, I'm going to throw you up first. Let everybody know where you're at, how they can reach you, all that good stuff.
All right, I'm Tony Simon. I'm from The Second Is For Everyone. You can find me on diversityshoot.com. You can also find me on The Second Is For Everyone on Facebook. And Simon Says Train on Instagram. What I do is actually get people together in New Jersey and Pennsylvania to introduce new people to firearms, the firearms community, and Second Amendment advocacy, regardless of their race, sexual orientation, religion, or background. It's an inclusive environment for you to learn about this entire firearms culture and how to fight for your civil rights. That's what I do and who I am. Oh, and I'm also hashtag the largest pound for pound gun bunny in America.
Tom, you got to follow that, man.
You can kind of say I'm in Tony's shadow, but that wouldn't be fair to say. Okay, here it is. I'm Tom Gresham. I'm the host of Gun Talk Radio. Been doing that for 25 years. It runs on 250 plus stations, and it's a pretty good sized podcast. You can find me at Gun Talk or guntalk.com. Anywhere you find videos and online streaming, we're there. Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, all the rest of it. Been a magazine writer and editor pretty much all my life. Grew up in that business. My dad was the shooting editor of Sports Afield magazine. So if it comes to shooting guns, I'll do that. I created the first TV series about self-defense with guns. So if it's self-defense, if it's hunting, if it's guns, or if it's Second Amendment, we'll talk about it. You can find me pretty much by just putting Gun Talk in your search engine.
Well, and I want to brag on something you posted on, I believe it was Facebook, that you have as a side, you do photography, and you got some great shots that are up for sale. And on the wall behind me in the not too distant future, you're going to be seeing one of those because
cool.
I really like what you're doing. You've got some amazing stuff up there.
Well, I'll pitch that. It's TomGreshamPhotography.com. It's been up for about 3 years. I think I'm up to the net profit's about $27 now. So I hope to become a dozenaire.
There you go. All right, Amanda, you're up next.
So I'm Amanda Suffecool, and I am the host of Eye on the Target Radio with my partner, brother, and stellar sidekick, Rob Campbell. So eyeonthetargetradio.com is probably the easiest place to find us. We are nationally syndicated, and we are just we're taking such baby steps that we're still wearing the little white hard shoes that you lace up and you can hear clicking on the hardwood floor. That's how much of a baby steps we are. But I'm also involved with the DC Project, so dcproject.info, 50 women from 50 states that are pro-gun advocates. And if you've seen a concealed carry fashion show somewhere across the country, chances are pretty good that I've had a hand in it in some manner. And the most recent, you should be able to find, there's an HBO documentary and a Vice documentary about concealed carry fashion shows. And so there's that. And then I dabble with the Polite Society podcast and the Self-Defense Radio Network and a couple of those other really cool places.
Very cool. And that leaves me. I'm Paul Lathrop. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. I am the owner of the Self-Defense Radio Network, along with my wife Susan. We do the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation every Monday night, and we do the Daily Bullet daily, as the name would suggest, and on Friday afternoons we do the Weekly Bullet, streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and shut this one down for now, but join us next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good one, guys.